Pompey 2, Blackburn 1. On a personal note, this report's a little bit later than normal, and that's because it's my birthday. And of course, I haven't had a better birthday present than that result and performance since I got a second-hand racing bike when I was 14. Staying on a personal note just for a few seconds longer, one of the drawbacks of having a birthday close to Christmas is that one or two cheapskate relatives give you what they call a combined Christmas and birthday present. And they try to imply that it is, if you look at the value of the present, it is what the value of two separate presents, a Christmas present and a birthday present, would have been. But it never was. It was just one present, and they had economised. Now, all I'm saying, only reason I'm mentioning that is because I don't want that result to me, just for me, to be a combined Christmas and birthday present. I want a second present on or around Christmas Day. Well, it was a good result, wasn't it? And it was a good performance. The first 20 minutes, we looked like what John Messino has described as the good team that we're capable of being. Or is the word decent? Decent, I think, is the exact word he may have used. But he pointed out that when we're not on song, then we're not a decent side. And I think that is a very good analysis of the Pompey that we have at the moment. Capable of being a good side, a decent side. And giving a team like Blackburn, who let's always remember were the third most successful away team in the entire championship. They were away specialists. And they had their captain back, who was a very capable player, if extremely annoying, but a very good footballer. So they had every right to expect that they would get something from us. And when they scored, there was almost a sense of, well, of course, we're going to beat this lot. That was why nobody went to celebrate with the goal scorer, did you notice? But anyway, they scored and our heads dropped a little. And I believe there was some booing at half-time. Shame on those so-called supporters. I'm coming round to thinking that if you don't know how to support Pompey, go and support somebody else. We don't want you. You're allowed to express concern, but booing the team it's borderline sick. So don't do it. Find some other way. Please. It didn't have the desired effect. Don't pretend to yourself, don't kid yourself, the boo merchants, that your booing is what turned Pompey round in the second half. It isn't. What turned Pompey round is John Messino going to his little office at Fratton Park, and I've been, and it is a tiny office with no windows, to have a few moments by himself to consider what he was going to say to the players. And whatever it was he said, it worked. It worked big time, because that second half performance, crowned off by those two fantastic goals. I mean, copybook goals, match of the day goals. They really were. Was really hopeful for us. If we can keep it up, anything like that, when we go to Derby and indeed through towards January and the window and then the rest of the season, then of course we're going to be safe. There are no easy games in the Championship, but then we're good enough to make one or two teams or three or four teams look ordinary or even less than ordinary. And that's what we did to Blackburn, frankly. They weren't very good. They squandered so many passes. They kind of got stuck in, but not in a valuable way. They were physical. The referee had a great game, letting everything go if he could, when he could, and that benefited both sides in the end, 50-50, if you do that. And the game got some momentum, although there was an awful lot of bagatelle being played around the centre circle, but that's modern football, with players being so fit and everybody pressing. So ping, pong, and ownership of the ball is being traded on a one-pass basis. It's not pretty to watch, but it's committed, it's industrious, it's muscular, it's sweaty, and occasionally it's skillful, and it seems as though we don't mind, especially with a scoreline like that. individual players all had a great game. It's a real pity that Swift made an unrealistic attempt at a through pass when he could have, if you look at it again, he could have played a much more piercing pass by going wide to a Pompey player. I think it may have been an overlap from Devlin, or maybe it was Lang, but he had a much simpler pass on than the one that he tried to thread through to Min Hyuk Yang, which wasn't on. From before he struck the ball, the guy had been closed down and was between Swift and Yang, and so the ball was easily intercepted. Not just Yang swallowed up in a big tackle, the ball was intercepted cleanly and they were away. And when I say they were away, the ball was in the net 10 seconds later, because a couple of Pompey defenders had moved forward in order to shore up our attempt to take the lead. It was 0-0 at the time, obviously. And their fella cut inside. It was Dazelle, wasn't it, who was left with the job of trying to close him down. Didn't manage to do it. Slapped his thighs with his hands when the ball went in the back of the net. Realised that perhaps he should have got closer and maybe not made a tackle, but certainly tried to block a shot. But anyway, we were 1-0 down. It was curious how the guy who scored the goal had to summon Blackburn players to come and congratulate him. He wanted to be mobbed by his teammates. There's something missing there at Blackburn, I think. The fans who'd made the huge round-trip journey were curiously subdued. Even when they scored the goal, we didn't get much singing from them. They didn't remind us that we only sing when we're winning, because it does knock the stuffing out of the singing fans for a moment or two or 10. But they weren't a very good side. They didn't deserve to be 1-0 up, but there they were 1-0 up. And we've got a mountain to climb, because the statistics are that when we concede first, we hardly ever get anything out of the game. And we haven't won a game where we conceded first this season. We've only won 4 or 5 now. So that statistic is hardly surprising. However, we went in at half-time. They had to endure that chorus. It wasn't a huge booing chorus, but there were fans who felt that needed saying. I've never met any fans who do that. I can understand it being almost an instinctive thing, but what are you booing? What do you think it's going to achieve? Oh, it's beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. And like I say, I don't mean it, because a Pompey fan is a Pompey fan and a friend. But, I find myself saying, if you don't like it, then go and support Bournemouth or Crawley or something. Because it doesn't help. That's what I'm saying. The club don't need your money that much, frankly. So let's remember that the business of being a supporter is to support, not to detract. Okay. Rant over. That one's over. So out we came for the second half, and we looked not quite as good as we had at the beginning of the first half. We were so good for the first 15, 20 minutes. Everything was working. Everything looked hopeful. I don't think anybody was sitting back thinking to themselves, oh, here's 3 points coming, because there's an anxiety about the business of being at a football match where your team are languishing in the relegation zone. You necessarily have had so many disappointments that you're not going to go overboard in your confidence. So we're playing really well, but we didn't take anything for granted. And we were right not to take anything for granted, because they scored and we went in 1-0 down. And then we came out. And let's talk about a couple of individual performances and the goal. Lang was fantastic, wasn't he? He was industrious, he was committed, he was talking to his players, he was making suggestions, he was showing the way with the way in which he played, which is the only way I think he can play. What a spot he was. I can't understand why some other bigger clubs with bigger wallets didn't pick him up when we did. Was he not playing like that before he came to us? Have we waved some sort of magic wand over him? Or what? Who knows? I don't know who was officially the man of the match, but he should be. I say. Matthews has grown in confidence enormously, and his 6'3", 6'4"-ness. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to have a 6'3", 6'4" presence in the middle of the back, at the back. Begins to look like it. He's fleshing out a little bit. I think they're putting a bit of weight on him. I think they're giving him a few carbs, beef him up a little bit. And Boat, well, he got the goal, so we'll come to that in just a moment. Devlin was amazing. He always is. There's nothing flashy or stylish about Devlin yet. Who knows? But he gets the job done. He's not just earnest and industrious, he's successful in what he does. He's standing on the right bit of grass every time, which is how I define, being a player who understands the moment in the game, especially when the ball is coming his way. He knows where to be, when to go forward, when to come back, when to go wide, when to cover, when to get close, when to stand off, when to go forward, when to overlap. He gets it all right. Clever bloke. Clever footballer. It was good to see Colby Bishop have a run out. He didn't threaten, but he gave our goalkeeper the option of the long ball. Now, I tuned into the BBC at half-time to see what was being said, and somebody had sent in a text saying that Schmidt was kicking the ball long too often. Well, he wasn't. He hardly ever did. I don't know what game that bloke was watching. He wasn't kicking the ball long. He kicked it once or twice long because Blackburn worked out that he couldn't kick it long because he had 4 forwards, all of whom were 5'6". There's no point going long when your guys are a foot shorter than half the other team. So he was looking for the short ball out of the penalty area when he had it. And generally speaking, he worked it well. Our 2 fullbacks went wide and somebody would then come forward in the middle. One of our midfield players would come back towards him in the middle of the pitch, and he'd often get the ball and then would know that one or both of the fullbacks were on for a pass, so it would go square out to them. And that's clearly a training ground thing, and it was very successful. It meant we kept the ball. When Schmidt did knock it long for variety, to keep them on their toes, we didn't get it. And often we didn't pick up their header. So they would get their head on the ball first when the ball had travelled 60 yards, and then they get their hands, or their feet rather, on the ball when it was headed forward by the Blackburn defence. Boat scored the most fantastically textbook perfect winning goal. And didn't he enjoy it? And shouldn't he enjoy it? Poor lad, the weight that he had doing nothing for a year, all because of an innocuous incident on the training ground with nobody around him. And he stuck it out. And he's beginning to show what a prospect he is. Let's remember that. He's not only a good player, he's a prospect for the future. And that header was perfect. I've looked at it again and again. Nobody clears a path for him. He isn't being overly protected by the rest of the Pompey players, which is what often happens at a set piece, at a corner. The rest of the players clear the way for the designated target man. And it didn't look to me as though he was. I think if anybody was, it would have been Matthews. But it came to Boat. He had a little bit of space around him, enough to make the jump and to steer the ball into the perfect spot, into the corner, down, level with where the goalkeeper's feet were. You can't stop him. The goalkeeper can't get down that quickly. It was perfection. But in some ways, the equaliser was even more perfect, because it meant an assist for Murphy, and that will do him the world of good, because he's just sort of faded a little bit in the last few games, it seems to me. Whether it's a confidence thing or whether the opposition have started to suss him out, they certainly give him a lot of space now. He has the ball, but they stand off him. They stand well off him. And he hasn't quite worked out what to do about that. He was worried about taking on his fullback, even when his fullback had a yellow card, and had to be careful. And still Josh Murphy wasn't working that one where he takes the ball up to the guy and then pushes it past him, gets to the push first and gets that curling cross in. Well, he didn't have to, because he got his cross in the way he did, and there was Lange to absolutely crash the ball into the roof of the net. It was a tap-in, but that doesn't do for Lange. Laggy wants to burst the net, doesn't he? And so he did. And we all went bonkers. And then the winning goal went in, and then we just had to hold on. And I thought we held on as consummately as I've ever seen it. Well, as I've seen us for a long time. There wasn't a great deal of anxiety on the pitch at all, and there wasn't a great deal of anxiety amongst the crowd. I think it was seen by all concerned, including the Blackburn players and supporters, that 2-1 to us was a fair score. I haven't seen the interview with Ismail, their beleaguered manager, but I'm suspecting that he will say that they could have played better. Pompey were they'll say well organised. They always say that when we're the better team. Oh, Pompey were well organised. That's the closest they can come to saying they were good, or just simply they were better than us. And we were better than them on the day. And it was the best birthday present I've had since I was 14, as I said. So thank you for that, Pompey. And I reiterate that I hope that's not my combined Christmas and birthday present. And as you can probably hear from the state of my voice, a celebration took place after the game at our gaff in honour of the result, as well as my birthday. And I'm a little bit the worse for wear. I hope it doesn't sound frayed at the edges, but I'm off for a hair of the dog, wouldn't you? Yeah. Talk soon.